Okay, now that we've got some basics under our belt, some simple techniques, some things to avoid, let's make a part that we can cut on our Shapeoko. So let me show you the finished product here. And this will be the finished product. We're going to do some simple pockets, some holes, and over here we have some more pocket operations. I'm going to also show you how you can bring in an image and use it to kind of trace over, to construct this image as well. So these are often a lot of the things that I do with my projects, where I might have a drawing or an image or something that I'm using as a reference point to create some of the geometry that I want. So let's start with this, and we'll finish it up. Okay, so I'm going to start with a brand new design here. And so when I first got my Shapeoko, the first thing I did is I went to Home Depot and I bought myself a 1x6 common board, which I wanted to use. Just kind of playing around, figuring some things out, figuring out how my tools would, carve the material, what types of depths I could cut, speeds and feeds. So I basically went through, 2 8-foot sheets of 1x6, just practicing and playing with things. And so I think this exercise here is something that you should do when you first get this, before you start attempting your first real project within your Shapeoko. But let's construct that pocket with a smiley face. So again, using some of the techniques you've already seen in the previous lessons, I'm going to start off with a sketch. And I want to have everything centered around this, so we'll use a centered rectangle. And since I'm using a 1x6 piece of common board, that measures, and so basically what I'll do is I'm going to cut this to a 8-inch length, and then that measures 5.5. And then from here it's 0.75 thick, so we'll just press pull this to be 0.75, and now we have our stock that we want to create. Now once you measure your stock, you may use your calipers to measure the stock, and this may actually be 0.76 or 0.74. And if you don't want to do any kind of facing operations on here, I would change my CAD model to reflect the true dimensions of my physical stock in that case. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our first pocket feature here. So again, I'm going to choose sketch. I'm going to select on the top plane here. And what I'm going to do is create some more rectangles. And so we'll just do centered rectangle again. Choose this. I'm going to draw a line out this way. I'm going to draw a line out from the center here because I want to use this as a mirror. I'm going to mirror this across. Hit L on my keyboard for line. And I have that completed. I'm going to delete this line, or I'm going to trim this out just to show you something later. You can leave this in, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to just kind of trim it out. And then we're going to add some dimensions to this. Okay, remember I can choose D on my keyboard. Let's make this 0.5. Let's make this 2. You can see here that this kind of pulled away from here. So now what we can do to correct that is we can use coincident. So that doesn't work because what it's trying to do is take this from here to here. That's not what I want. But if I use coincident, use that sketch line and the point, it's pulling that down. So it's important to realize what I was trying the first time was that take this point, move it here. It wouldn't do that because of some particular reason. But when I chose the line and the point, it moved it down. So now that's going to stay all coincident. Let's go back to dimensioning. And I want to make this 2 as well. So remember a tip from our previous lesson. I can just click on this dimension here and it makes them equal to each other. And then we'll choose this. Let's make that 1.25. And let's make this 1. So there we have the beginnings of our pocket. We'll accept that. We can use press pull to pull this down. And let's make it 0.5 deep. Okay. So if we go back to our original design model, we see that we have a little step right here. We have fillets in the corner and round. So let's construct that area. Now it doesn't matter if I put the rounds in now or I put the rounds in later, but I want to just show you a couple different things. So let's go ahead and hit sketch, and I'm going to pick the bottom of this here as well. Now one of the things that's often useful, now I can go to line and I can pick this corner here, no problem. But in some cases you don't have a sharp corner to choose. So that's where using this project feature is often kind of useful. I can click on this line and this line and hit OK. And what it does is it kind of builds some, I guess, construction information here, or it gives me information that is selectable. And so now I can choose this line here and pick that other point, and now I've got a closed volume that I can extrude. And so I didn't need to put a line here or on this edge or on this edge. You know, Fusion is smart enough to know that that's a closed region that I can then, you know, extrude up a given value. Okay, so now I have that multi-tiered pocket. And so now I'm ready to put my fillets in, or rounds. I can choose these edges here. And this is where you might want to be conscious of what type of tool you might be using. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch flat end mill, so we can, you know, put in, you know, the radius of that end mill for this. And there we have, you know, our first pocket that we might want to, that we're going to machine out later. Okay, so now we're ready to construct the smiley face. I'm just going to turn this off to get some more space here. So here what we're going to do is choose attached canvas under our insert menu here. And so again, I'm going to pick the top face here. I can select the image that I want. I'm just going to browse to my pictures folder and drop this in. Just orient myself into the top view so I can see better what's going on here. I can rotate this thing around 90 degrees. I can, you know, kind of drag it over approximately where I want it. And I'm just going to leave it like this just so I can show you something with this image. I can certainly scale it here up and down, but I want to show you a different feature that we have inside of Fusion that might be helpful. So let's say, for example, I know the distance, you know, I want the distance of the smiley face from, you know, front or side by side, or the diameter to be 2 inches. One of the things that I could do here is I can expand my canvases tree here, and if I right mouse click on this, I can say calibrate. And what I can do is pick, kind of get close, as close as I can here, pick there and say, I know that's 2 inches. And so now what it does is it actually scales that image to give me that true size. So now when I go into my sketch and I create a circle, let's just kind of get close as we can here. And you can see that as I drag close to 2 here, I'm pretty darn close to what that calibration allowed me to do. So that's a really cool feature within Fusion that allows you to scale those images to get pretty close. As long as you know some kind of distance in that image, you can proportionally scale something. I'm just going to undo this and get back out a little bit. One of the things that I just want to do here is just make this as kind of big as possible to use a lot of the space that I have on here. So I'm not too concerned with the true scale as of yet, but I wanted to show you that feature because that's pretty handy when it comes to dealing with images that you drop in. So now that we have this, we can do anything we want with that. We can trace over it, we can create a sketch. So here I'm going to again go into my sketch. I'm going to construct a circle. Try as best as I can to get close to that, just kind of dragging it out. Here we'll sketch arc. I'm actually going to just I'll use a slot, I think, for this. So this is my center point. Start there. And here, looks like and so maybe I'm going to have a tool kind of drive through there. That's a, 1/4 inch tool. And so that looks like that's a diameter dimension. So we'll make that 0.25. And then we'll use our ellipse command to create the eyes. And then of course, we'll go back to our trusted mirror command that we learned earlier as well. And we'll say sketch mirror. Okay, not perfect to the original sketch, but it gives me kind of a guideline that I can work towards. And then what we'll do here is do an offset. And again, I'm going to offset this by my tool diameter. Maybe I want to go outside. And now I'm ready to perform some press pulls. So let's just pull this down. Maybe we're going to just cut that only a 1/16 of an inch into the part. Again, my sketch disappeared after that first use. I'll turn my canvas off because I don't need it anymore. So we'll say press pull. We'll get the eyes. And we've got that in place. Okay, so we're partially there. So now I just want to put a couple holes in. So once we get to actually making this part, I want to show you how you can drill holes, how you can counterbore, things like that as well. So a couple ways you can create holes inside of Fusion. You can of course create a sketch and then push pull them and end up with your hole. There is a hole command here as well that we can work with. So it's very useful when it comes to creating like a counterbored hole. I obviously used this feature when I created my wasteboard, where I had counterbored holes that I machined out. One of the things here that a couple ways you could place this hole. You can pick the face that you want. You can kind of move it around. You can pick a reference from this edge. We can say 0.5 from this edge. Pick us additional references as well, and maybe 2 inches from this edge, and then we can define the actual size of the hole. So maybe we'll say this is going to be a 0.5 diameter. The actual hole is going to be 0.25, which is the tool diameter, and then our depth, we don't want to have a drill point, we just want to have a flat. And so here we're going to say that's going to be 0.125, and then our overall depth is going to be maybe 0.625. So it's not going to go through the entire part. Okay, so that's one way to create a hole. You choose all those options, you position it where you want, and then you create it. Another way to do it is you could first sketch a simple point. And so you could say, let's go in here, let's put a point right there. We could then dimension. .5, exit the sketch, and then when we go to the hole command, you can see we can select a point, for example. It remembers that from the previous operation. And what's nice about this is that, so from a sketch, we can have multiple holes. So let's go in here. And so let's edit this sketch. Let me just say sketch another point. And we'll just choose, all of these guys. Or and so we can always go back to that sketch and add more points later if we want. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. And so here is our first part that we're going to make on the Shapeoko. So we'll come back and take a look at the tool paths that we might need to create this part.